Well, I tried to play an open for you, but it didn't work. So, welcome to Ava-Live, everybody. I'm Josh Irwin, and today we're going to be talking to Sean Patrick Kennedy, who is one of the newest members of the Avalon Universe cast. He joins us for two of our films to play our through-line bad guy. Real quick, before we go any further, when we did this shoot a few weeks ago, we went over budget. We did a crowdfunder to help us pay for the shoot. We raised about $2,500, but we spent about $7,000. So we're a little short on our goal. So we still have a few bills that we need to pay. I've included a link to the crowdfunding here in the chat. So anyone who wants to go and help us out with that, there it is. And without any further ado, I'm going to bring in our friend Sean Patrick Kennedy. Hey, Sean, how are you?
I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. I'm still getting the hang of StreamYard. I come from the broadcast TV world, and so this is a new app that I'm learning. And if I don't use something every day, I always forget how it works. So
well, I didn't know that I should probably have this thing laid sideways so I get like a better shot here.
Yeah,
should I do
that? You can try it and see if that works.
Let's see if it just screws me up now. Yeah, look at now there. I'm like, oh wait, there we go.
Nope.
All right.
There you go.
Okay.
Did it right. So Sean, before we get
to my Rocketeer shirt, come on now.
Nice.
That's right. All right.
The actor who played the Rocketeer, I think his name was Billy Campbell.
Yep, Billy Campbell. Yeah.
He auditioned to be William T. Riker on Star Trek: The Next Generation. He was one of the finalists. Ended up losing to Jonathan Frakes, and then ended up appearing as the outrageous Okana in season.
That's 2. Right. He was great though, as it. It was perfect.
So Sean, tell us a little bit about yourself before we get into your role in our films and all that kind of stuff. Give us some background on who you are. Introduce yourself to our audience.
Okay. Well, I'm if you look me up on IMDb, you'll see that I am the son of a ballet mistress, which means that once upon a time she was a prima ballerina in the Boston, New York, Atlanta, and Miami ballet. She danced with all the greats, learned from all the greats, and then I came forth at a certain point, and I've really been in different levels of stage and screen ever since. Now I do a lot of writing, but it was great to get out there and do some acting. But speaking of the Rocketeer, way back in the day at Disney MGM Studios, before it became Hollywood Studios, I was the one and only ever Rocketeer, and my footprints are actually, and Billy Campbell was there too, but as star of the day. But my footprints are actually the footprints that are in front of the Chinese theater there. I went on to do Indiana Jones there for almost 4 years, and I started there in 1989 as a college program cast member, Muggsy, at the Great Movie Ride, which is sadly no longer around. But that's where I got my start. I wanted to go to MGM Studios because it was a real working studio, and I was in between trying to figure out what I want to do as far as college goes. At first, I started going to Boston College to be a football player, and then I just realized at a certain point that football was great and everything, but chances are, being at that time 6'2" didn't look great because all the new guys that were coming out were all 6'5" and 250 pounds that were playing my position as quarterback. So I said, you know what, I might want to go to Plan B, which would be to get into acting or get into the studios somehow. And so I got myself college program to Disney, and got to see what a real working studio looked like. Fell in love with the place and knew as soon as I got out of school that I was going to want to go there and be an alumni college program person and see what I could get into. And that's when I found Thunder in Paradise with Hulk Hogan and Chris Lemon and Patrick McNee from the Avengers and Carol Alt. And we were the sister show to Baywatch, believe it or not. And I became really good friends with Christopher Lemon and Hulk and all those guys, Terry, and started getting into the production side of things, and then decided to go to the Art Institute of Atlanta and take correspondence courses for USC, NYU, and because you got to do the work. And started doing production work for a lot of years, and did everything from behind the scenes, like working on Riddick, coming up with props with friends of mine, that's what they did. I would carry coffee on set, get into plays, eventually did Broadway and off Broadway, and got the lead in a lot of classic musicals, and didn't really ever have any major direction, just whatever way the wind blew me, like Forrest Gump, that's the direction I was going in, and had a really good time along the way. But most of my credits would be on the stage, and then a lot of the rest of them would be behind the scenes in a lot of films. Everything to being the guy that actually built that Mustang, that green Mustang that's been used in Tokyo Drift, and then I sold to the studios, and then they sold for a lot more than I gave it to them for. But yeah, so it's been all over the place. But here I am now, back in the acting circle again, playing Commander Kamak, son of.
So a lifelong performer then.
Yeah, but lots of writing over the years. So recently I've sold a couple of scripts in Hollywood, and I've been doing a lot of fix-it scripts for a few years now for a lot of the things that you see all the time. Sadly, a lot of those scripts, since the way that it works in Hollywood, you don't really get your name on them for fixing stuff, but you do get paid, and that's good enough.
So it's interesting how people tend to cross-train so much in this sort of thing. You're never just an actor. You're an actor and a producer, or an actor and a director, or an actor and a filmmaker, actor and a scriptwriter, whatever else.
Or an actor at a rich restaurant, but that's the Hollywood line.
Why do you think that people do so many different jobs? Learn so many different talents.
Moths to flame. You can't. It's not the most stable thing that you can do in life. I've been really fortunate. I've made money. I've been able to put things together. I've fostered friendships for 35 to almost 40 years now that have really done me well. But you just got to keep going. I mean, I was one of those guys that for so many years, people were looking to get advice and this, that, and the other. And then all of a sudden, a lot of the people that I knew that I didn't think were going to go anywhere have gone on to win gold statues and all kinds of other things, because, sometimes you just get into a real good situation, and sometimes it really is the luck of the draw. So, if you're really in love with what it is, that it is to be in front of the camera or on the stage or whatever it is, you just can't help it. You're a moth to flame. You just keep working it as much as you can, and as much as that drives your parents crazy or your spouse or whatever it is, you can't help it. You've been bit and you can't get away from it.
I know it drives my spouse crazy. I can tell you that much. I'm always doing something with this, and she's like, you're always doing something. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but you're gonna go places, though. I could see by how quickly you were working, and I've been on set of the big Star Treks and the little Star Treks and all the different little things, and I like your technique. I think you've got something going there. I haven't seen anybody ever juggle so many different things at one time and get so many things done. I mean, that's pretty great.
It's one of those things where I wonder if I sometimes wonder if it was all a mistake, because I do so many things, and I'm just like, was this good or bad? I don't know. We do have our first question, and then I'm going to bring someone else in here in a second. Our first audience question is from Victor Coco, and he says, have you ever met Tracy Lee Coco, which of course is Lieutenant J, one of the most prominent background officers in Star Trek: The Next Generation? Great question, Victor. I
personally have not.
But you've met a lot of people associated with Star Trek: The Next Generation.
I've met a lot of people. I mean, probably one of my best friends and mentors would be Doug Drexler. I just spent a fun birthday, which you saw on Facebook, hanging out with Barbara Luna, Doug Drexler, the Akutas, both of them, Mike and Denise, and we had our March babies little birthday party there, and a lot of other interesting people showed up as well, and some people didn't show up, the bastards. But I'm sorry, I have never met the person you're talking about, but I do think I know who you're talking about. Yes.
So Tyler has now joined us, and I thought it would be very special to have him here because really these scenes that we shot were really about the interaction between the two of you.
Have you recovered, Tyler? Are you okay? All the bruises,
Yes,
the actual real bruises.
You know what? My right shoulder is still kind of effed up, like my rotator cuff. Like since then,
I apologize.
It'll heal eventually.
So we'll get into the nitty gritty of the shoot here in just a minute, but this is not your first experience with Star Trek fan films. You've been involved for a little while. Talk about that for a minute. Tell our audience, where you started with fan films, why you got involved, all that sort of stuff.
Absolutely. I've been all over the gambit. I started off originally years ago, nearly 10 years ago now, over at what was Phase 2 at the time with James Cawley up there in Ticonderoga, New York, in their fabulous, amazing CBS sets. And I worked on a project that was an original project that got out there with Brian Gross as Captain Kirk, and it was a lot of fun. His wife worked on that one. I'm the guy who had the film studio that brought the 4K cameras to the set, but unfortunately my scenes were never filmed because, well, we all caught a death of some kind of a virus while we were there. It was known as the plague shoot, and on my particular 2 days I couldn't recover fast enough, but the thing was still shot. We did real well, and then I went on to work on Prelude to Axanar with Alec Peters and those guys, and that was a lot of fun. I worked on the big main shoot that they did with them, and did a lot of stuff behind the scenes. Unfortunately, I didn't get on camera for that. But anyways, I did get a chance to do a lot of interviews with a lot of people and do a lot of photographs behind the scenes, and I met people like Kevin Haney behind the scenes, who won the Academy Award for driving Miss Daisy's makeup, and also came and worked on our shoot. So it's nice to meet these wonderful people.
Well, and I guess it's our good fortune that, we're the ones who got to put you on screen, because I got to say, any other production that had the chance to have you on and didn't, they're missing out.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's honestly their loss, because we were so fortunate to have you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Even in the times when you would flub your line, the rare times when that would happen, you would still entertain everyone on set when you did it. And so that was one of the wonderful things about it.
I'm supposed to be the son of Ka'amp, and I'm like, Ka'ar? What? What the hell am I talking about?
Son of Kamak, son of a bitch. Who's my daddy?
Son of a bitch. It was pretty fun. No, it was great, though. It was great. And I don't know why that kept tripping me up, because that's like the very first line I learned.
So I'm going to pull up some slides here of our shoot, and I'm going to kind of step back for a second. And Tyler and Sean, I want you guys to talk. Tyler, you maybe ask.
I'm drinking from the skull, by the way.
So
nice.
I figured that was very Klingon of me, to drink from the skull of a victim,
Yes, and we can do Hamlet at the same time. Yes.
So Tyler, I'm going to hand the interview over to you for a little bit, and you guys kind of talk about what this was like for you and the experience that you had.
So Sean, Josh talks all the time about there are 4 different movies. There's the one that there's the one that you conceptualize, and then the one that you write on paper, and then the one that you film, and then the final product that you edit. And by the time you get to that, it's so much different than what you originally conceptualized, because things change. And when I was reading this scene, and when I first got the script, when he first Josh finished writing it and sent it to me, and I was first reading this scene, this was a very intense. I was feeling it, like as I was reading it. This is a very intense scene. It's very dramatic, very like Star Trek 3 stuff, it was just very so I don't know if you're aware, Josh's original vision for Avalon Universe in the first place, which kind of got derailed after for a couple of films after like our first 2, but his, and I would say our because I shared that vision and have always supported it, for Avalon, was to be a fun, lighthearted, at times comedic, action adventure, sci-fi adventure show.
Yeah.
You know, it
Make
was
it
always,
fun, but at
yes,
the
it was
same time,
always,
silly.
yeah, it's always been, you know, supposed to be fun. And when I was reading that scene was not fun. It was very gripping and very, and you just came on set and just made it, you know, you played the character with all this charisma and charm, even though he's, you know, even though he's like murdering people, but you know, you can't help but like the guy because he just so, you know, even, you know, he's being a bad guy and he's like, I'm gonna cut your head off, but says it in a really charming way, and just the way you played the character and the way we played off of, you know,
I walk on the stage right there. I walk right on. The first thing I do is something to show that I will do that. Yes. So spoiler alert, somebody on the bridge does pass, but we won't go into who. And it's immediate.
Yeah. Well, and somebody else already has off screen.
Yes. Yes.
But just, you know, and like most of our dialogue was not scripted. I mean, none of, like, very little of it. That very opening little kind of speech that you gave was scripted, and then the rest of it we just fed off of each other and just improv. Like, you would think of something to say, or you would do something, and I would think of, you know, some smart ass thing for Mason to say to that, and then, you know, you would come up with this
too. And you were great. It was good to play with you in that kind of a way to create some pieces there. And I think if you wouldn't have said anything, I think that most people would have figured that it was just straight up dialogue.
Well, I mean, that's, you know, I hope that's how it comes off, because once we would come up with, you know, we would improv a line, you know, you would think of something to say, and then we'd be like, yes, stick with that. And then I would come up with some, you know, retort to some, you know, some response to something that you came up with, and then, yeah, let's do that. And then we ended up doing that for, you know, keeping those lines that we improv for every take. It's like, no, we were writing the dialogue as we were going. It was a
good collab. It was definitely a good collab. And that's a good scene right there where we turn the chair so we're face to face. So you understand that, you know, I'm here to plant my flag on your bridge, and it's time for you to step off.
Yeah.
This mortal coil, actually.
But it was like getting to act with you and do all that improv and do the stunts and everything. You know, an actor of your caliber was a real treat. That that I don't think I've quite had quite the privilege of that level of interaction in the whole of Avalon Universe. And that's,
well,
you know,
I really appreciate that. I really do. I loved it, and I'm hoping that not only does my character come back, but kind of like Mark Leonard and some of these other great Trek actors of the past, that if I lose the brow, you know, maybe I'll have a chance to maybe do some other things. Always.
You know, look at, you know, several actors throughout Star Trek have played several different characters of different races and, you know, species and things like that. I in our last film that we released last July, I was in it, but, you know, I wasn't Mason. I was like a Vulcan bodyguard. I was just background. So yeah, there's always room for stuff like that.
Well, the cool thing is I've got a real thick accent during it, so, you know, at least I think so. Anyways, I think I was laying it on kind of thick.
Yes.
Yeah, I thought it was hilarious. I mean, you know, it just fit so well, and like Tyler said, it was entertaining. There was humor, but there was a little bit of action to it, and you know, one of the things that we've done a lot that's been kind of mixed resulty is we've had fight scenes, and we've tried to do elaborate things, and that sort of worked and not worked at times. And what I loved about this was that it wasn't too elaborate. It wasn't just some big elaborate fight scene. It was more about the performance. It was more about the acting that was going on during the fight scene that made it what it was. And it took a very lighthearted and adventurous tone. It was so perfect.
Well, I appreciate that. But I definitely like the tonality that the captain had with Commander Kamak, because there were little tiny, not obvious, but little tiny elements, in my opinion, of speaking of Mark Leonard, like the moments between him and Kirk where, there was some respect there, but he didn't have it when he first walked on the bridge. But by the time he was halfway through the scene, he realized, you know what, I think this guy's all right, but unfortunately, you still gotta die. So it's pretty cool to feel that while you're acting in a scene and you're creating that, because like you said, there's the scene that you write, there's the scene that it looks like, and then there's the edit that it becomes. But while I was shooting that scene, and the type of actor that I am, my performance will really be dictated a lot by my feedback. And what I was getting from that was a lot of genuine, real feeling. And then I was also having to infuse into a character that I've never met before, just like Kamak had never really met you before. I had to infuse into that, maybe in another time, in another place, I could call you friend, that kind of thing. But I've got to chop off your head with my bat left now, so sorry.
What was interesting too, and over the years, I've learned to trust Tyler with regards to improv.
Yeah.
So there's a famous story that we always tell that we did a film in 2017 where I wrote dialogue for his character, and then he looked at it and he wasn't really feeling it, and he comes to me and he says, "I want to try something else." I said, "What do you want to do?" And he just goes into this character, just becomes this random character in front of me. And I was just like, okay, do that. And I went back to the script and I deleted all of his dialogue and just wrote Tyler Improvs. And so Tyler improving to me has been something for years I knew I could trust to add something to what was written or something that was there. And so, what was really neat about this is I knew that I could trust you as well. And so I handed that scene. I basically just said, forget what's in the script, and handed that scene off to the two of you. Wow. So much better. So much better.
Listen, I really respected what you wrote, and what you wrote is still absolutely 3/4 of the meat and potatoes that I said. So I really respected it. I mean, I tried to hit all the points. I don't want to do too many spoilers here, but I definitely hit all the points that you said. There were just little things that we rounded a little bit, but I'll tell you, it was good dialogue. It was great dialogue, and I really appreciated it. When I read it before I ever went there, I was really happy with it. So anything that we tweaked was really just based on our interaction. And they were minimal until we got to the point where we had gone past the dialogue and we were into our little scuffle. So, which, by the way, you fans are really going to enjoy. It's a heck of a fight. I hope we put enough high energy in it as to where when you were looking at the shots, you thought, okay, well, this is going to cut good. So
I did. And what I liked not only was what happened in the fight, but we had so many background actors there. Like we had like a full house. We had 50 people there that day. And so
were the reactions good behind us? Were they reacting all right?
They were all reacting to it. And so that was
great.
Because I couldn't see them back there. I'm wondering if they're just sitting there going and just watching the scene.
There was some of that. But also you get people like Jason Spriggs, who wasn't a background actor, who was a principal character, and like his reactions to what was going on were hilarious. And then, he has a little piece in it that's pretty neat. And so it was just cool, like that we were able to make it such an interactive scene. What I can tell you, everybody, about this, we are doing a bit of a retcon with the character, with the Klingons, with the Romulans, with this whole thing. And we're doing a whole lot of retconning these days. And we have this little explanation that we started in one of our films that we talk about these through line aliens that we're making contact with, these cosmic stream aliens, these extra dimensional aliens, that when they enter the physical universe, they change the timeline like every time they enter the universe, and and they don't just change the timeline before they enter, they change it after, before, and it's like, you know, when you throw a rock in a pond and the waves go every direction. And so you see some elements retconned, one of them being your character. He's now more of a classic TOS Klingon. Tell me a minute about your motivation behind the design of the makeup. Let's talk about the makeup for a minute.
I thought it would be nice to have a bit of that Klingon brow that, as you can see right here on my forehead, I've got a couple of pretty good lines that I've had since I was 15, believe it or not. And I just thought if I could accentuate that, give him a little bit of a brow, even though I know during the original series, most of the Klingons just didn't look like that. They had my palette and they had my dress, but they didn't have that. They had the hair that I was kind of sporting and all that kind of stuff too. But the idea for me was that I had read years and years before, really even before Next Generation came out, about the human fusion Klingon experiment. And then, of course, years later during Next Generation, or during Deep Space Nine, or one of those incarnations, Worf had mentioned that we don't talk about that. You know, how they at one point looked kind of human. So my thought was, yeah, kind of like somebody going through Botox or something. And I know that this was something I internalized, that if at a certain point you just decided to no longer take the treatment and this, that, and the other, that the real you would start to come back. And I know some people would say, well, in Starfleet, if they wanted to go become Romulans or Klingons, they would do a real quick kind of thing using a special kind of deal, and they'd have the ears and whatever, just like Kirk did, you know, when he went over to the the Romulan vessel in that one episode with Spock, when he fell in love with that Romulan commander. My girlfriend, by the way. But anyways, in that episode, right. In that episode, yeah, when that happened, you know, I just thought, you know, the Klingons, maybe they don't like that technology. They would never use that technology. So they went deeper than that, in my personal opinion and in theory. And so when it came to that stuff coming back, it wouldn't be a matter of surgical procedure. It would just be a matter of no longer taking whatever you had to take to change your physiology and whatever it was. And then over time, you would start to come back from that. And so that was my theory behind it, was that, you know, Kamak had decided that he wanted to become more of what he was when he was, you know, how he originally was. And so he has a kind of a Star Trek 5-ish, or was it, no, Star Trek 6-ish kind of lesser brow kind of thing going on.
And Keith Hamilton, who's one of our post-production artists, helps us with CG and editing. He has a great point. Azibur from Star Trek 6 also had more subtle forehead ridges than other Klingons. So there is a little bit of a precedent there. Yeah.
So you never know. Maybe, you know, maybe that's one of the houses that originally had been part of Klingon fusion and had come out or something. Who knows? I mean, there's so many houses in the Klingon universe. I just figured that my particular group had decided that they'd had enough and they wanted to go back to being more of what they really were. So
now let's flip back here a couple of slides, and you know, what was it like for you to go through that process? I know you really wanted to do this, and so to start seeing that makeup take shape, feeling it happen, making that transformation, what was that experience like for you?
Honestly, it was wonderful. The fact that I could ask somebody of the caliber of Kevin Haney to not only, you know, Academy Award winner, like I said, to come out to do the makeup, but not only to do the makeup, but that he would fly out and he would come and hang out with us and not just work on my makeup, but also do the palette work on the other characters, and even do a little bit here with you, because man, you need all kinds of makeup, you know, Ty. So yeah, just whatever he could do to be helpful on that day was really great. He brought a heck of a kit with him. I can't believe he was able to get it through on the plane. But to sit in his chair, honestly, it was a pleasure. Certain people, they work with hammers and anvils, and he just has a real great touch. And the makeup that he did was so amazing, that and so finely tuned that yeah, I could lightly with a finger barely touch the makeup or the ridges anywhere on my forehead or nose, and I could feel it like I was touching my own skin. That's how unbelievably delicate and light that application was, and it really was like your own skin. It was just a gelatinous form of skin that was just sat there, and it was astoundingly good. I never felt uncomfortable, never felt claustrophobic. It was a pleasure, and then it stayed on forever. I could have left that on for a day, and it would have never come off. It was a great application.
Now, one of the and a shout out to Ray Tessie for this. One of the really neat things about that shoot that day, we had a lot of Klingons, other people who I think it was like a Klingon fan club or the Klingon equivalent of Starfleet International. A lot of those guys showed up, and then our friend Thomas Dye came with a bunch of Romulan costumes, and we turned a lot of our actors into Romulans. So we had a little Klingon Romulan alliance going. You got to lead that. Tell me about that experience and how cool it was to have your own little army on set.
It was great, and everybody was a lot of fun. And first and foremost, that's what they were there for. They were there to really just have an enjoyable time. They were there to play in a beautiful sandbox that was given to all of us to be able to use, for this endeavor. And I'll tell you, it's really great when you're around such good energy in a big circle. But at the same time, you then get your little group like this, and then you start getting a little surly, and you start getting a little you start getting in character. And the next thing you know, you've got your boys and you got your girls, and you're kind of like, all right, well, let's take over this darn ship, and they really were fun like that, and they really got into it, and we got a little cliquish there for a minute, but it was all in good fun, and in the long run, it was a blast, especially the little blurb you shot at the end, which I'll keep away as a spoiler, but it was really fun. And then the one that we improv and came up with, which was a lot of fun, that might just end up on the whatever just for fun, but it was fun.
Yeah, we added an improv scene there at the end just for the heck of it, and that was really fantastic. So as Ed mentioned here, CAG, if anyone wants to go hang out with some Klingon cosplayers, CAG.org is where you're going to want to go.
KAG.org. Yeah.
Now, this is a question for Tyler.
Real quick before you do, Josh. By the way, the leader of the Klingon group, I guess he's the captain of their ship, and I kind of got the impression that they were actually Starfleet International. But anyway, he said from one captain to another, and he handed me his business card. Did I tell you the guy's name? It's Russell Camp. Anyway.
Who's your daddy? Who's your daddy?
So there were just to lightly get into part of it, Tyler and I met at Starfleet International, which is a nationwide, I think maybe even worldwide Star Trek fan club.
It is.
It operates
as
chapters as you get your own spaceship, and the chapter's a spaceship, and you have a crew and all of this. Tyler and I are still part of that group, the USS Marco Ramius here in Fayetteville, Arkansas. Tyler's older brother Chris is the captain of that ship, and but we met there in 1991, and I
91. My gosh.
Yeah.
I was 12. Josh was 11.
11, yeah. And so the cadets, because since we were kids, we were cadets.
Anyone under 16 years old, yeah.
Yeah, and so this guy who was a Klingon, and I don't know if he was CAG or not, but he was a Klingon. Well, that was his persona. The guy's name was Brett Camp. He was the guy who was our youth leader. And
right.
We had our ways of making fun of him. We'll just leave it at that.
Yeah. Yeah.
But his persona was Commander Kamak. And so that's the inside joke, is that Kamak is son of Kaamp. It's just a thing going back to when Tyler and I first became friends, 30 years ago.
Is this person still alive? Am I going to get death threats
we don't
from this?
Know.
We have no idea. We can't find him.
We don't know. We can't find him.
Well, I hope he takes it the right way.
All I will say is that, if anybody watching, if we told you the reality about this guy, it's just piece of human garbage. That's all I'll say.
Wow.
Yeah, we're kind of making fun of him. So
Yeah.
Well, hey, you know, I still think it was a fun character, a good name. I like the name Kamak. You know, I do.
Yeah.
I like it. You know. Sometimes, one man's trash is another man's treasure. What can I say?
Well, and look, hiding a little joke here and there, that's just me. If you
Right.
know me very well, that's something
I do it by writing all the time. Every family member I have, their name has somehow been in whatever, friends and not friends, for certain characters. Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
like my lead female character is named after my daughter. I play a character who's an admiral that's named after my youngest son. So there's it has its balance. So anyway, moving on from that.
Sorry. So you said you had a question for me.
I don't even remember what it
was.
was.
Oh well, shit.
Okay, Tyler, what questions? What questions do you have? Share your thoughts with us on this whole thing.
For Sean?
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, it seems like Sean and I interacted enough at length that I don't know. I don't know that I have any questions. What was your I don't know what was your favorite moment of the show?
I got to be honest with you, going there and bumping into Lawrence Henshaw, who I hadn't seen since I was 13. I've seen him a lot, but I've known him since I was 13 years old, but I haven't seen him in several years, and to see his son, was great. These are people, even though I've been an actor and done all these different things, it's like I grew up in this Star Trek fandom. I really did. I got to say, I wonder if I would have been as into what it is that I'm into today if not for Star Trek. And, so to be a kid, 12 and 13-year-old kid hanging out with Lawrence, and who you guys all know now, and he volunteers a lot of time around there and all that. If I wouldn't have known guys like Lawrence and all those other friends from that time and met all those amazing Star Trek people and then gotten a chance to work on staff with that particular convention, it was called Volcon, a play on the word Vulcan. And, it was the very first Star Trek cruise was through that company. They did several of them. They did those and Buffy and Slayer. They called them Slayer cruises and all that stuff. So I did a lot of those things over the years, met a lot of those stars and actors, and really just fell in love with the whole thing. So to come back to this, like when I walked onto set, when we were all getting to position one, when I had a chance to stand on the bridge of, what is essentially the bridge of the original Starship Enterprise, whether we're doing that or not, you walk onto the bridge, and I think I said it as like I'm 11, 12 years old again. This is great. And
you said 9. You said
maybe
9-year-old Sean. Yeah, I've got a video of it.
Because that's how old I was when, believe it or not, Star Trek: The Motion Picture came out. So when I saw that, I was blown away. I used to watch the original episode starting after that with my grandfather on WCIX Channel 6 in reruns in Miami. And I just loved the show from that point on. And eventually, like I said, that got me to go into Volcon conventions and meeting all those people and getting on staff with that, and then going off to college and doing my own thing. And then eventually, at some crazy point, there I was standing on the bridge of the Enterprise with you guys, finally getting to do like a big meaty part in that universe. And to me, the Avalon Universe is one of its own Star Trek universes. I don't care if they're paying us huge contracts or they're not paying us a penny. The fact of the matter is that it's just a beautiful, amazing thing that nobody else really gets a chance to do, and I'm incredibly grateful. So,
well, we're grateful to have you. It's interesting you mentioned the TV station that you watch Star Trek on. I actually work for the TV station now that I watched Star Trek on as a kid.
That's
so
awesome.
that's kind of a weird, neat thing for me. But it was a treat for us because we really strive to, with every film that we do, we want to get a little better. We want to improve upon what we're doing. And I hate to use this term, and if Vance is still here in the comments, he's gonna come after me. But we leveled up a little bit with this episode.
I
And
appreciate that.
it was so fantastic. We, you know, again, it was a retcon element. So one thing that you're going to see, we've got a film called Knights of the Void that we're really we've got a film called Knights of the Void that's coming up that we're really deep into post-production with, and we're gonna have you in part of that, because we talk about this retconning thing, how the universe can alter, the universe can change, and so there's going to be like some foreshadowing of your character that takes place in that film to lead up to the film that your primary role is in, and that is the Once and Future Captain. Now the bummer about the Once and Future Captain is it's still probably a year away because it's such a big project. But right. It's one of those things where it's like when you got the opportunity just to do cool stuff, you do cool stuff. I wasn't so worried about retconning or you know, because I was more interested in making a better film than I was like trying to be consistent with something that we did previously.
Right.
Because again, we're trying to get better. So I feel like this turned out better than I could have ever even imagined it would have.
Well, the feedback was great. I remember when we shot Kamak's bridge scenes on his bridge on the vessel that he's in. You know, I delivered my lines, did what I needed to do, and then when I walked outside, people were telling me, "Oh my gosh, I heard you from outside the building. That was great." And I was just like, "Okay, awesome." It's like I just deliver the way I deliver. But you know, people were coming up to me, and the craziest thing was
Space
the
Team.
character. Yeah, right. The makeup was so encompassing in its own way, and the delivery that we decided on. You know, it's like, should I do it with this accent or whatever? And we decided on that. The next day, when I went into the break room that's behind the bridge, for you fans that don't know, behind the bridge is where everybody eats and they get their costumes and all this other wonderful stuff. So I'm sitting there with some of the actresses and I'm talking for about 20 minutes. And then one of them says, "So what are you doing on the thing? Are you today?" I said, "Oh, no, I was the Klingon commander." Yes. They were like, "Wait a minute, that was you?" And they were all shocked. So it was a lot of fun that I thought that they knew, and they had no clue that I was the guy the day before for several hours, and they didn't know. So I'm now lobbying for a Section 31 part, you know, so, you know, just totally different character.
Let's do it.
So
Right.
Now you've been on a lot of fan film sets. You've indicated that you've been on some of the most well-known fan film sets that any fan filmmaker or fan film watcher would know about. How did your experience with Avalon compare to those experiences?
Excuse me. I mean, I thought that it was very similar. I mean, let's be honest, on some of those sets, especially the Axanar set, I mean, you have the best of the best in Hollywood. We're all there behind the scenes working with and everything else. They had the best of the best equipment, best of the best everything. But when it gets right down to it, you're still taking wooden sets and strings of lights hanging in the background and all this stuff that when you're standing right amongst it, including back when I was working on Thunder in Paradise with Hulk Hogan and we were on that superboat that they had and all these, and on SeaQuest, when I was on the SeaQuest, you know, for 2 years in Orlando, I'm telling you, there's not that much difference. I mean, if anything, I think the sets that I was on in Avalon Universe were almost just as good as the sets that I was on really in SeaQuest back in the day. The only thing that they had that was unbelievable was obviously the dolphin tank with Darwin and stuff like that. But once you're walking down the hallways and you're walking on their version of the bridge and this, that, and the other, I mean, you can hear the tonality and feel the feel of, you're not on wood planks, you're on, you know, I mean, you're not on metal planks, you're on wood, you know, so, and that it is a set. But the set that we were walking on there, you know, the corridors are solid. You know, and they are the look of your childhood, and they look just like it. And you don't have to really wince your eyes too much to be like, I don't even want to leave this set. I think I want to live in Captain Kirk's quarters, or I think I want to hang out here every single day and help make it a little better, or something like that, because there's really almost no difference. It's an amazing, amazing experience to be on the set of the Avalon Universe sets. And I'm telling anybody that's out there that whatever it is that's in your mind's eye that helps you look at these episodes and just believe that it's real Star Trek, don't fool yourself. It really is real Star Trek. You know, it's in the vein of what it was that Roddenberry and those guys were all going for. They're not trying to make it, you know, something divisive or horrible. As a matter of fact, just like they said, they're trying to have great episodes with lots of drama, but also that little touch of humor and levity that made the original show so great. I mean, you know, it is what it is. And that's also closer to real life.
You know, and it's kind of my personal philosophy with regards to the shoots that we do, that everybody has a good time. That's really, you know, yeah.
Bob said too, like the crazy game that Tyler brought. I can't remember what it was called, and he's not on the screen right now. I wish he was there. Space Team with a couple too many drinks, but even better that way. If anybody out there knows what Space Team is, you've got to buy it, play it, and enjoy it with your friends. And if you're ever out in Georgia and you want to visit the set, we're going to probably play again. So, yeah.
Well, you know, Tyler is he's big into board games. That's a Tyler fact that people may not know, is that he's just crazy go nuts about board games. And we have a game night like every Friday night at his house, where we go and we play Space Team, or we play last Friday night. It was like Blockbuster Video, where it was all movie trivia.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, we played that until like almost midnight and had tons of fun. And it was all Avalon people. It was me and Tyler and Neil Bilby, who's our director of photography here in Arkansas, Caitlin Bailey, who's one of our actors. Tyler's brother joined us for a little while. Our friend Brandy, who's in an Avalon Universe film. So, like, you know, it was a lot of fun. I think we mostly
go see that, by the way. Your Arkansas, you know, sets.
That's right, because you're not done with us yet.
That's right.
You're gonna come to Arkansas and do a few more things. Not gonna give it away yet, but you're gonna play another character. You're gonna Jeffrey Combs us a little bit, and come play another character with a different look and a different voice and all that kind of fun stuff. We've got one like really big pickup weekend that we're gonna do now that, you know, we've gone through everything and we got past a lot of really hard stuff. I made the decision that what I want to do is just do one more, instead of like trying to parse it out. We'll do a pickup weekend where we kind of, you know, get all the odds and ends that we either need to reshoot because something didn't turn out the way I wanted it, or just something that we left to the end because we didn't want to include it in big shooting weekends, because we were trying to get, like, you know, things like battles and all of that. You know, we were trying to get ahead of that. So we're going to bring you up to Arkansas for that weekend, and you're going to be a different character in a couple of scenes, and it's going to be, I predict that it's going to be awesome.
That's great.
Because I think, you know, having seen you act, I think it's going to make really add some value to those scenes to have you in it. So Tyler's just come back looking like Space Team. We talked about game night and Space Team and all that stuff while you were gone, and
the after party. Yeah, that was great.
And how he was on Sequest, which is one of Tyler's favorite shows. Tyler, we're going to start talking about Sequest.
Yeah,
I love Sequest.
Season 2 and 3. Yeah, back in those days, I worked in the art department on Sequest, and I actually helped come up with almost the entire look of the second season bridge and all that stuff. Working with Vaughn, the guy who was the set director for the show. Yeah.
Wow.
That was way back in the day, hanging out with the Deloise boys over at
who all went on to do Stargate
across the street, playing volleyball in the sand. It was great. It was a trip.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the DeLuise brothers, they went on to do a lot of Stargate stuff.
Yeah, and
They
Peter.
were even calling the closers back then because every show they showed up for, whether it was 21 Jump Street or that show, was like, oh, you guys are coming here just to help us cancel the show. I see. Okay, the closers. Yeah.
And Peter directed some Andromeda too, I believe.
He did.
Yeah.
He's an amazing director.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
and fortunately for them, when they got involved with Stargate, they didn't get the show canceled. In fact, they were able to hang with it for the entirety of the run of 10 years.
Yeah, but he didn't have gills under his arms. You know, he should have been showing off the gills. You know.
Yeah, one of the brothers, I don't remember which one it was, actually played Amanda Tapping's boyfriend for a few episodes, and he was the only one that didn't die. She just dumped him. So he did get to be dumped by Amanda Tapping, which is, you know, a lot of people would like to be dumped by Amanda Tapping.
Yeah.
But so they did see a lot of success.
Real quick, fellas, I got to bounce. But
All
Sean, it's been a pleasure. Thanks for coming on with us. It was a pleasure to work with you on set, and can't wait to do it again.
It was a blast. I can't wait to come and hang out with you again.
Yes.
Maybe next time in the next life we can be friends.
Yes.
Well, we'll see.
All right. See you, fellas.
All right.
I'm
Tyler,
bringing
see
it
you
over here
later.
too. Who knows what that is?
Tyler's got quite a social life, so he's always going somewhere and doing something.
Well, he's got his Alex P. Keaton jacket on, so there's something
I know.
going on.
I was about to give him a hard time about that.
That's right.
So, we're coming up on finishing up our hour here.
Was there any fan questions or anything like that, or are we good?
Yeah. I don't think we have any more questions in the chat, but what I was going to talk to you a little bit, you had mentioned sort of towards the beginning about your friend Doug Drexler and him, the Okudas, Barbara Luna. These are some really big Star Trek people. You've had an involvement with fan films. What's been your involvement with like real canon Star Trek?
Well, I've done a lot of fix-it scripts for a lot of things over the last 6 or 7 years. So when different shows had different things going on, I would be sent dialogue. There's only so much I can really go into on that, but when I was sent dialogue that was a little bit mumbly or grumbly, and the actors didn't feel like it came out right, they send me a lot of those parts of the scripts, because what I do is I pay a lot of attention to the actors and actresses. I've always been very good at trying to get in their heads and know how they speak, what they say, how they would say it, and how it would come out. And so there's been the opportunities to do that, but not just with those shows, but with several other shows along the way too. So sometimes if it's a show that I haven't seen or watched, or a character I don't know, I just have to spend time not only watching their character on that, but sometimes watching some of the other things that those actors or actresses do, whether it's in the Star Trek universe or whatever it is, and just kind of get an idea what the cadence of their voices, the way that they seem to deliver. Because as Shatner said a lot of years ago, at a certain point, once you play the character a little bit, it becomes 5 or 10% character and 90% of you. So there's a way that certain people speak. There's a way Patrick Stewart speaks. There's a way that a lot of these people speak. And sometimes when people are writing things, they look great on paper, but it's really hard for an actor to do that. So that's what I'm really well known for, is cleaning up and making dialogue make sense. And then sometimes, honestly, a lot of writers, they can write a lot of stuff and put out a lot of work and do everything real well, but they're not good about separating the voices of the characters. A lot of their stuff seems like it's the same person talking in several different people. And so you got to give them a little inflection and a little stuff like that. So that's been my specialty, but lately I've been diving into the whole soup and trying to do complete pieces now.
Now you said that you hang out a lot with Doug Drexler and the Okudas.
Well, Doug Drexler, the Okudas I've known forever, but actually just recently, over recent times, gotten to know personally and face to face. But Drexler I've known for a long time. And I've also known almost the entire original crew since I was about 13 on, and a lot of the people that worked with them, including people that came in, like Mark Leonard, his daughter, George Takei, his mother, while she was alive, his husband, years and years before they got married. I was lucky that I was a 6 foot, almost 2 or 6'2", 200+ pound guy, even when I was younger. And when I got to be about 17 or 18, Joe was like, "Hey, listen, could you sit with Bill Shatner and make sure nobody throws a pie in his face, or go hang out with Leonard Nimoy so that he feels safe going down the halls on the ship or whatever it is," and and things like that. And Nichelle Nichols all the time. She was a wonderful woman who was amazing and flirtatious. Even when I was 18 and 19, she was a trip. It was always in jest and that kind of thing. But she was a blast. It was a blast hanging out with her. And just getting a chance to hang out with all of them. When I was on the cruise ship back in the day, they were introducing this new show called Star Trek: The Next Generation, and David Gerrold was there, who I've known for several years also really well. Spent a lot of time hanging out with him, going and seeing movies and such. But David Gerrold was the person who was on ship and was explaining to people what it was, telling us who Andrew Probert was, and showing us the new designs of the ship and all that stuff. And so I've been really lucky. I've been really lucky to, whether I've been in it in a big way where you're getting paid, or if I've been in it just as a fan, like a lot of the people that who was lucky enough to be a step in between the fandom, and get a chance to sit in rooms with Leonard Nimoy while he talked with his son or whatever it is, or sit in huge rooms with a lot of the original cast members, as they actually had a really wonderful time together. The sort of thing that you don't hear a lot about, but them sitting there laughing and telling jokes and talking about the old days. And I'm talking about rooms with Bill Shatner sitting right next to George Takei, and them laughing it up. So things happen along the way in relationships and this, that, and the other. I think their issues came, much later, around the time of his wedding, and that's all too bad and everything, because I always saw those people always having a good time, laughing and carrying on, and I mean behind the scenes with each other. So I've been lucky. I've been very, very lucky to be around a lot of this.
A lot of this was on cruises, Star Trek cruises?
Cruises and conventions. Volcon Conventions was the largest privately owned, you can hear the thunder and stuff around me. I'm here in Florida. It's getting thunder now. It was the largest privately owned and most successful convention on the East Coast. And so, all these different convention sites up the East Coast, and cruises and stuff like that for several years of my young life, until I went off to college. And then, I was no longer doing that anymore, but I still kept my relationships with a lot of those people. And like I said, I got a chance to bump into Lawrence on set where you were, and I had no idea he was going to be there that day. So that was crazy. Of course, I knew him. And Lawrence, if you're watching, I knew you probably, 50, 60 pounds ago, but hey, there you go.
So Keith hits on something here that I really agree with. He talks about, like, as much as it would be neat to meet the Star Trek cast, he said he thinks he'd be more excited about meeting these art department people. I was at STLV a few years ago, and I saw Mike Okuda walking through the dealer's room. And
right.
Let me tell you something. At that convention, I met Rod Roddenberry. I met Denise Crosby. I've met Frakes. I've met Marina Sirtis. Several of the Star Trek actors. When I saw Mike Okuda, I lost it, man. I literally tripped trying to go over to shake his hand, and went over and talked to him. And I was like, that's the moment when I turned into a schoolgirl, was when I saw Mike Okuda and wanted to talk to him about LCARS and art, because people like him and Doug, the artists, they have such a big role in creating the look of the show. Some people don't even know how much they influence what you see on screen. So to me, it was like a treat to meet him. And even Denise was like, okay, this guy really likes Mike, back up a little bit there, my friend.
Well, they really are very special. They really are. And one of the reasons why, especially the three of them, the three of them are a unit. They really are. They're family. And they're beautiful together as friends and as family. They are literally brothers and sisters and the whole thing. And obviously two of them are married to each other. so they are definitely family. But they really are symbiotic. But it all comes from they care about why things work on Star Trek, and they also care about the idea of Star Trek. They care about it because it meant a lot to them while they were growing up. It also was something that they got a chance to be a part of. Like, you know, when I was a kid and I had this big, huge Spock poster on my wall from the poster books that Doug Drexler made, I didn't know who Doug Drexler was. But I do know that I still have that poster to this day. It's starting to fall apart a little bit in the folds, and every corner is missing because wherever I moved from when I was about, 13 years old through my last days of college, I took that thing off a wall wherever I was because it was going back up. And some of the other, so, at that time, Doug was trying to be a keeper of the flame because there was no Star Trek. It didn't exist. It was gone. It was a thing from the past that people like him wouldn't let go. And him not letting go of it and then getting a chance to nurture it later on is really a lot of the water that people like Terry Matalas talk about today when they're busy showing them on the Ready Room, and they're like, oh my God, we got Doug Drexler to come and be a part of this. I mean, that's when I see that, it's so gratifying because the truth is that those are the people that well, what did Thulsa Doom say? I am the wellspring from which you flow. I mean, like, these guys were great. They really did will this thing back into an existence in a way because they were feeding all the fans at that time everything they could to keep this thing going, and they held on just long enough for Star Wars to come out and create Star Trek again. To create that reason for the studios to say, we have a property like that. Well, what are we doing? What are we, nuts? And thank God they made that amazing movie that has only aged better and better every single year compared to, when it first came out, they're like, oh, it's not as fast as Star Wars. But now when you watch the movie, it's unbelievable how well it's aged and improved. And thank goodness, because those movies were amazing. And then the television series we got after that, that's all because those guys. And then they were lucky enough to get drafted to go work on those things.
And they went back and worked on Star Trek: The Motion Picture again a year ago and released a new version of it that's stunning.
Beautiful. It's beautiful. And like I said, it stands up. It's kind of like the 2001 Space Odyssey of Star Trek.
It is.
It really
is. It's one of the few examples of pure Roddenberry Star Trek, too. There are really only 3 examples that you can look at: The Cage, Star Trek: The Motion Picture, and then like season 1 of Star Trek: The Next Generation are really the most pure Roddenberry influenced Star Trek that's there. And one thing you hit on is that they put a lot of thought into how things work. If you look at the LCARs or the ocudograms as they're called,
right,
you can tell what it is. It's not just gobbledygook. You can tell what you're looking at, what that display is saying. That very heavily influenced what we do in Avalon Universe. Again, in Knights of the Void, when you see that, there's going to be a bunch of LCARs, same in Once and Future Captain, where you can look at them and tell what they are. It's not just random nonsense. But it's something.
But we should definitely put a LCARs, influence Michael Okuda. We love you. That
right.
Kind of thing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And you as an actor, you were doing something very similar with your character. You looked at your character and you reasoned, why does he look this way? Why does he act this way? It's really 2 sides of the same coin creatively. Right.
Well, I appreciate that. But anything that has to do with Star Trek, I'm going to take seriously. It's like you said. One of the things that kind of got us when the new Star Treks came out recently, like the new movies starting in 2009, was one of the elements that was missing was we knew that they were treating Star Trek a little bit Star Warsy. And I actually got in trouble with Mike by saying this when I was at the birthday party not that long ago. I was like, well, nobody cares how the Millennium Falcon runs, but everybody cares a lot about how the Starship Enterprise runs. And then he looked at me because he likes Star Wars too, and he goes, I care how the Falcon runs. And I was like, yeah, I know you do. And he really said that. But, it's funny. I knew that I cared too, but it was never really, really explained. And let's face it, Gene had, NASA experts talking with him. You know, he had a chance to work with all these different people. And then eventually Star Trek influenced the people that started creating the things that are in our everyday lives. And all of a sudden, you know, Yeoman Rand's little pad, there's your iPad, you know, the flip phone, which is really, you know, it's just all that stuff, the separating doors and everything. Just there's a million miles of stuff. Replicators are 3D printers, which eventually one day will be replicators, and maybe we won't have greed and hunger anymore. I mean, who knows?
So.
I mean, 20 years ago, if somebody said they were going to make a 3D printer where they would print something that you could actually use, and they would print it, and it was going to be three-dimensional, and you could hold it in your hand, they'd look at you and go, "You're a nutbag." But now it's like they're using it for everything.
They build houses with it.
They're building everything with it.
Hospitals.
Yeah, absolutely. Pretty soon to be building apples and steaks and all kinds of good stuff with all the proper ingredients and blah, 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 and maybe even precious stones and metals. And then we'll have replicators. So there you have it.
So I want to take the opportunity to say thank you for coming on and being with us. And we could probably just talk all night about how much we love Star Trek.
With me.
And I hope that, you know, like I said, we're very fortunate to have you working with us, and hope to have you in a lot of things, because, you know, who knows where we're going from here. So thanks for coming on tonight, Sean, and we'll talk to you soon, my friend.
All right, signing out. Live long and prosper.
Live long and prosper. Okay, just some quick things before I check out again. Like I said, we do still need to kind of pay off some bills for our shoot. So our GoFundMe link is in the comments, and that's something that I will you know, continue to just leave up for people. But other than that, we really appreciate everyone joining us tonight. We're gonna start doing these a little bit more. Hopefully I'll get better at them, but, you know, we'll have interviews with, you know, other members of our cast, you know, kind of talk about them and their creative motivations, their histories, get to know them a little bit. But we're also going to explore some of the film school type applications of it, how to films get made, how to fan films get made. Maybe look at post-production, maybe look at art design elements. Just a lot of the little neat, interesting things that go into making a fan film, so that a lot of you can be involved in the fan film making process with us. And a lot of you are. A lot of you have been on set with us, but, you know, it'll be a chance to kind of look at what we do and get to know what this is all about. We want to share this with you. We don't just make fan films for us. We make it for the people who follow us, the people who support us, the people who want to watch what we do. I'm personally grateful to all of you who are involved, and I want you to know that. So we'll have another one probably in about a week or so. So thanks for joining us until then, and live long and prosper.